Welcome back everybody to my channel. Hope you're enjoying the weekly reviews and outlook. This week we're going to be going over around 15 or 16 pairs, something like that. We're going to avoid all pound pairs altogether, of course, because of Brexit. So I hope you enjoy it. Hope you're taking a tip away. And as I always ask, if you are enjoying the content, please like, subscribe if you haven't, and turn on notifications. So the first pair that we're going to take a look at is the dollar index. Now, as expected, the dollar index has gone down since last week. We had a beautiful breakout of structure and a beautiful retest. And what I'm expecting with this market is to see some continued downward movement. For that reason, with that expectation, I'm going to be focusing on some of these key levels here in the market. Now, we can see that this is the swing high of this structure, and this has formed a lower high within the current trend that we're looking at right now on this market. And I want to see price pull back to some of these key levels for a continuation back to the downside, or at least see price come back to a level in the market to create a wick, show some sort of rejection, as I've mentioned on my Instagram if you haven't seen it, in terms of reversals and continuations, and then look for some sort of retest, low high formation for a continuation to the downside. This is what I would suspect will happen with this market, simply because we've had a strong push phase. So now I'll be waiting for the exhaustion phase to kick in, then I'll look for the depletion of that exhaustion phase, and then look for the continuation to the downside. The next pair that we'll take a look at is gold. Now, I'm expecting this market structure to push up. Now, funny we say that because we can see that price is kind of getting squeezed out at the moment. There's no clear directional bias. But with this structure, what I'm noticing a lot is more pressure from the downside. And we can see that the bulls are really stepping into this market. So for that reason, what I'll have to first identify is how the market is playing out. I'd like to see price action at least cleanly break and close above some of these structures to indicate continued bullish pressure. And I'd like to see price break this structure for a retest and then a continuation to the upside. Now, of course, if price fails to break this structure in and around these levels here, around 14.95, then I would want to see price show strong bearish momentum. We would need to break and close below these structures here, and then we can look for some sort of retest, lower high formation before we have the continuation to the downside. My bias is buys. Of course, that can change within 24 to 48 hours as I'm an intraday trader. So we'll monitor this moving forward next week, see where the break and closes above happen, and then make a directional bias from that point. But for now, these are the two levels that I'll be looking out for. So let's see what happens in and around these structures. The next pair that we'll take a look at is Swiss franc yen. Now, what we can see with this market structure is that it's clearly up. Price is showing no signs of any sort of reversal at this moment in time. And for that reason, I would expect a continued up movement in the market. Now, what I'd like to see is a strong pullback, continuation to the upside to look for continued buys. The only time that I'm going to be looking for sell opportunities on this market is if price creates a level in and around the market area. It comes to this level, shows a depletion in bullish pressure, and then price finally leaves this structure for a period of time, comes back to this structure for a retest, and then look for the continuation to the downside. But we're not going to see this happen on Monday, probably Tuesday, Wednesday if the market is going to reverse. But for continued buys, I'll be more focusing on price pulling back, giving us an exhaustion phase in this market, creating a structural higher low of these previous structures here, and then looking for the continuation to the upside. So let's keep this super simple and clean this up. This is clearly a uptrend market, looking for the pullback, continuation to the upside. I will not be selling into any resistance, so I would need a decent pullback in order to warrant taking buys on this market. The next pair we'll take a look at is Euro USD. Now again, this market is clearly showing that it's in an uptrend. The momentum, the structure is calling buys. I'm not going to be buying an overextended market. What I will need to see with this pair is price pulling back, again creating some sort of higher low formation, forming a structural level to work with, seeing price come back for some sort of double bottoms, and then continuations up. Keeping it very simple at the moment, I'm not looking to sell this market again, just as we explained, unless I see price leave, create a new structural level, come back to that level for a double top, and then look for the continuation. So for now, my bias on Euro USD is still buys. Again, that can change, but we're better off being safe than sorry, not looking for those reversals. We don't need to be the first in. We can always wait for the reversal to happen and then we can jump in down the line. So that's Euro USD. The next pair that we'll take a look at is Aussie Dollar USD. Now with this structure again, very similar to the last two, this is a very, very bullish market. At the moment, it's in a push phase, so I'll need the exhaustion phase to kick in, creating a higher low formation before we have a continuation to the upside. Again, no sell opportunities until the market shows true evidence of a reversal. Only then will I look for sells. So for this pair, we're looking for buys. The next pair that we'll take a look at is New Zealand Dollar USD. Again, this structure is clearly indicating bullish pressure. We've had the break close above previous structure, indicating bullish pressure. And with this market, as it's in a push phase, I'll be looking for this market to exhaust for a higher low formation and then a continuation to the upside. If you can see the trend of what's happening right now, we're expecting a continued dollar weakness. So for that reason, we'll be looking for continuations moving forward to next week. The next pair that we'll take a look at is USD Cad. Now with this structure, this market is clearly down. Now this is a very overextended market, and I'm expecting against the Canadian dollar is this market to push to the upside. However, before that happens, what I'll need to see with this market structure, to see price exhaust in this current downtrend, to see price come back to a structural level in the market, create a level to work with, and then look for price to leave the structure for a double bottom, and then I can look for the continuations up. Personally, I'm not looking to trade this structure on Monday. This is something that I'll probably be looking at to trade around Tuesday or Wednesday. The key levels that I'll monitor on this market are, of course, this structural lower high and these levels within this structural lower high. If price manages to do what I just illustrated, which is push, make a double bottom of previous structure, and then look to go up, then I'll be looking for my buy opportunities. But for now, this will just need to develop a little bit more before I make a directional bias on which way I'm taking this market. Of course, if price breaks and closes above the structure, then we can definitely find evidence that the bulls are taken over and a potential reversal is in play. So for USD CAD, just to give you a clear directional bias, what I'm looking for is seeing price trade in and below this level for continued sells, but my preference on this market is to see price come back for a double bottom structure and then look to ride this market back up to these key levels. The next pair that we'll take a look at is oil. Now we can clearly see with the structure, this market is up. We're making higher highs, higher low formations. We're showing no evidence of the bears being able to take over this market. So what I'd like to see is how price comes back to some of these key levels in this market for a retest of this structure before we have a continuation to the upside. Now for quite some time now, I think the last week or two, we've been mentioning that we want to see this market go up. It has been going up. However, it hasn't given us a strong push to the upside that we want to see. So it will be very interesting to see how oil plays out next week. If we start to break close below these structures, then we're going to have to obviously rethink some things. But if price is able to trade above these structure levels here, show strong support, bullish pressure, then I'll be looking to buy this market moving forward next week. The next pair that we'll take a look at is Aussie Dollar Cad. With this market structure, to me, it looks like the reversal's in play. We've had a strong push to the downside where price was able to break close below structure, break close below structure. Then all of a sudden, we had strong bullish pressure enter the market. We're now breaking, closing above previous structure, creating higher low formations in this market. So what I'd want to see is how price comes back to some of these key levels that I'll illustrate now. Of course, this is the major key level in this market. I'd like to see how price comes back to this key level for a potential double bottom continuation, or to see if we can hold above previous structure where there's evidence of wicks and bullish pressure to see if we get a retest of this level and a continuation to the upside. So we'll see how this plays out, but for now I'm buy bias on Aussie Dollar Cad. The next pair that we'll take a look at is Euro Swiss Franc. With this market structure, we are clearly in a range. Now, as far as I'm concerned, we've had an attempt to break to the upside and we've failed, indicating bearish pressure in this market. But just to keep trading super simple and not to overanalyze the market, for continued sells, I'm looking for a break, retest, continuation. For buyers, I'm looking for a break, retest, continuation. Not planning to trade this range at all. It's really messy. There's not real taps to the upside or downside that gives me any confidence that I want to trade this range. So on this pair, I'm looking for a clean break and retest of structure before we get a continuation to either the upside or to the downside. The next pair we'll take a look at is CAD Yen. Now, you probably notice I mentioned dollar weakness, But with dollar CAD, I expected the dollar to be stronger, which means that I'm expecting the CAD to be weak. Meaning, with this structure, even though it's a bull structure, I would like to see the yen be stronger than the CAD. Meaning, I want to see this market go down. For that reason, I'll be monitoring how price reacts to its major high to see if price is able to leave this level, pull away, potentially come back for a retest, and then look for the continuation down. So this is my bias on CAD yen, expecting CAD weakness versus the dollar and versus the yen, and this is the reason why I want to see this go down rather than continue up. The next pair is dollar Swiss franc. Again, dollar weakness, so I'm expecting price to pull back to create some sort of lower high formations for a continuation to the downside. The reason is we're in a push phase, so I'm never going to sell or buy a market in a push phase. I'm always going to wait for the exhaustion of this market for a continuation down. Some of the key levels that I'll be working with on this market is clearly not going to be this major structural high. Reason being because if price is planning to come back here, by the time we get to this level, we're going to be creating new structure, which is obviously not going to mean that I'm looking for sells. I'm going to be looking for buys until we get back to this key level here. So for that reason, what I would like to see to give me confidence to enter this trade is to see how price reacts in and around this rejection area on this market, which is a very nice level, or at least a 50% retracement of this whole move here from top to bottom, looking for price to pull back for a retest, lower high, and then look for the continuation, expecting the market to make a new lower low. This is my directional bias on this pair, and we'll wait and see what happens moving forward next week. The next pair that we'll take a look at is USD JPY. With this structure, we can clearly see that the market is up. We do have bearish pressure evident in this market, including price breaking, closing below structures, making new lower lows. For this reason, I'm expecting the market to continue up. So what I'd want to see is how price reacts around this major wick area in the market. And if price comes back to this key level for now a double top of this structure, then I'll be looking to sell it. Firstly, my decision making is going to be based on how price pulls back to this key level, if we're going to have a double top continuation, or how price continues to push down to this level, see how it reacts in and around this rejection level for continued buys. The range has not formed yet. We have 1, 2, and then potentially a third tap of this market. And if we get the evidence, we can buy it back to structure, which is completely fine, because even if we're looking for sells, by the time we get back to this major structure, we would have at least taken profit or locked in our trade to break even. So with this structure, this is my key level here, and this is my key level here. I'm identifying a potential range in this market, and then I will decide whether I'm going to take the buys from the bottom, the sells from the top, or if price just altogether smashes through these structures, and then I'm going to continue with the overall momentum of either to the upside or downside. We'll see what happens moving forward next week. The next pair that we'll take a look at is Euro Aussie Dollar. As you can clearly see that this market structure is pushing to the downside. We are actually failing to break structure, but the overall consensus of this market is down. The reason being is we had a clean break and close above structure. We had a retest of structure, making a new higher high, and then all of a sudden we had a strong wave of bearish pressure, smashing, closing below previous structure levels. And now I personally want to see how price comes back to these levels for a retest and a continuation down, or to see how price pulls back for a lower high formation and then a continuation to the downside. If we don't get the pullback and we do manage to smash close below the structure, then it's going to be a simple retest of this level before we have a continued push to the downside. And that's as simple as it is on this pair. The next pair that we'll take a look at is US 30. Now with this structure of this market, we can clearly see that we're coming to a key level in the market. The overall bias of this structure is up. So with that being said, I'll recognize the bearish pressure in this market, and now we start to form a range with this pair. Now previously we didn't manage to come back to this level to complete a 1, 2, 3, 4 tap of this range, but we have come back making a higher high of the structure with significant bearish pressure in this market. So what I'll be identifying on this pair is the strong bearish momentum back to this structure, which we see with this candle, the depletion of the bearish pressure, to now see if we have evidence of bullish pressure in and around this level for a continuation back to the upside. So for now, I'll play the range. If we get the evidence, we'll buy it back to the structural highs. And of course, if we finally show more evidence of this bearish pressure, it will be a simple break, close below the structure, retest, continuation. With the structure of this market, we're clearly creating higher low formation. We've not managed to break or peak this level at the moment. So for silver, if I'm going to see this continue up, I want to see a break, close above structure, retest for a continuation to the upside. Pretty simple analysis. Again, the market structure changes daily within 24 to 48 hours as an intraday day trader. So I'll be monitoring the analysis throughout the week to see what's happening. I have my overall consensus and bias of where I think the market's going to go, and I'll work with that. If it changes, I'll change with it. But for now, this is how I see the market. If you're enjoying the content, guys, as I always ask, please do like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. And until next time, take care and catch you on the next video.